stickers. Hilarious.
Yellow flag. Well done, mate. Nice start. We can now use DRS. DRS now available. Caution, caution. Okay, clear. gap to the car ahead is 4.3 seconds. This is your final lap of the race. Yellow flag. Green flag.
That's fine. It's all fine.
damage. This will be a major performance impact unless you box for a new one. Check your MFD for a new strategy option.
Confirm. 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 Confirm.
Copy. Go now. DRS is now available. To the car in front is 32.2 seconds. This is your final lap of the race.
Paris, Leclerc, and I'm going to do Hamilton and Perez. Ready.
On the lap to the grid, and they seem to have repaired the damage. We're here in Budapest, the Hungarian Grand Prix, held at this track since 1986. This the 35th World Championship Hungarian Grand Prix. The main waterway, the Danube, you can see it on your screen, the only river that flows through 10 different countries. This track, slightly less long than the Danube itself, 2.7 miles long. There are 14 corners and 2 DRS zones along the main straight and the straight down towards turn 2. Elevation changes throughout as we sit in this natural pole, and overtaking chances into turn 1. Last year it was all about Hamilton against Verstappen. He had an awful lot to do after a pit stop with Lewis Hamilton, but he got his man in the end and went on to take his 7th victory here. Also in last year's race, the 2 Toro Rossos, Alex Albon around the outside and Danny Kvyat on the inside, almost touching and producing a spectacular tussle. And Sebastian Vettel with a spectacular spin in his Red Bull back in 2014 and somehow just avoiding the concrete wall. We've had rain here throughout the morning, but there are blue skies and the sun is now coming out. The soft tyre, the fastest tyre, but how long will it hold up? The medium, half a second slower a lap. The hard, more durable, 8/10 of a second slower per lap. We should start on the intermediate tyres. The track still very greasy. Here's the starting grid, then a 65th front row lockout for Mercedes, and a 90th career pole for Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas alongside him. It is an all-racing point, row 2. Lance Stroll third on the grid, ahead of Sergio Perez, starting 4th for a 6th time. Sebastian Vettel starts 5th for a 2nd year in a row here alongside his teammate Charles Leclerc. Behind them, Max Verstappen 7th, but possibly with damage to his car. Lando Norris starts 8th. Carlos Sainz, his McLaren teammate, is 9th. Pierre Gasly, who's had his power unit replaced, starts 10th. Behind them, Daniel Ricciardo, who failed to reach Q3 for the first time this year, is alongside George Russell in the Williams. Alex Albon starts 13th. He started 12th last year in a Toro Rosso. He has Esteban Ocon for company. Ahead of Nicholas Latifi, 2 Williams in Q2 this weekend, and he's ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Danny Kvyat starts 17th alongside Romain Grosjean. Both Haas cars out in Q1 for the first time this year, and it's an all-alpha back row. Antonio Giovinazzi alongside Kimi Räikkönen, and all eyes on Max Verstappen's Red Bull, Martin Brundle.
Okay, I did the same incredible work, guys. It's unbelievable. Thank you very much.
Fuck. This better not keep happening the entire race.
surprised than Max Verstappen with his little chat with the wall.
The track is drying, but it's very, very greasy on the surface. And if you do lock up, there's not much room here to make use of it. It is Monaco without the boats.
Yeah, and it's, you know, we're seeing some intermediate tyres, no surprise there really. You only need the full wet when there's standing water. Clearly there's no standing water anywhere of any significance, and the wets would burn out. So yeah, you get sort of an emulsion on the top of the track that's kind of neither wet nor dry. The tyres start to, the rubber, obviously an intermediate and a wet tyre designed to generate grip in cooler conditions. It's a different type of rubber, and sometimes actually even harder than the slick tyres, because you've got the grooves and it generates, the tyres generate heat with the rubber moving around with the groove. There is a car on full wets there, look.
And it is Kevin Magnussen.
Yeah, and it's you think, oh, the dry it gets, I'll definitely have more grip. And if there's an absolutely bone dry line, you can keep your 2 metre wide Formula 1 car within, then fine, and it won't be long. If there's no more rain, it won't be long at all before they're talking about slicks.
Has clearly taken a gamble here that there's a bit more rain coming in the intervening moments between starting this race and when the intermediate tyres would pit anyway. If it does rain, Magnussen's sat in a really good position, but your heart always sinks a bit, Martin, when you go the wrong way to the rest of the field, doesn't it?
I remember doing a feature back in 1997 that said, be on the right tyre at the right time. It's all, you know, it's 30 maximum, well actually 22, 23 seconds to pit. If you start losing 5, 6, 7, you can even lose 10 seconds up here on the wrong tyre. It's always worth a pit. But so Haas then look like they're gambling on it raining quite hard, quite soon.
The weather is coming from right to left as you look on your screen at the moment. And there is blue sky. It has brightened up a bit, but it will take a while for this track to completely dry out, and the drivers are going to have to watch it on the opening few laps. And we've got teammate against teammate, teammate against teammate, teammate against teammate. But the front three rows, the two Ferraris, after crashing on lap 1 in Austria, are back together again. The two Racing Points have a lot to prove. The two Mercedes have been a class apart this week, but they've got to be careful.
Yeah, and of course, you know, if there's an early safety car and the teams have to try and stack their cars in the pit lane, it's a very tight pit lane here.
Can I box for slicks before the start? Confirm, please.
And Kvyat wants to go completely the opposite way to Kevin Magnussen, the Haas. He wants to box to pit for dry tyres.
Yeah, and I believe he can. And then start from the end of the pit lane after the pack has been released. And the track is drying very quickly. We've got a track temperature of 28 degrees Celsius, so no big surprise there. And yeah, the outlier is the Haas on the full wets, which doesn't look the right thing at the moment.
No fans here, but we saw Roberto Carlos, the legendary Brazilian midfielder, giving a big come on to all the drivers as they went round turn 12. Magnussen's pitting, Grosjean's pitting, and Danny Kvyat, I think, has been told by his team that they'll stay out there on the intermediates for the time being.
Engine keeps silent and still.
Hamilton's very nervy about his engine and how that's sounding for him. We have 20 drivers taking part here. It's the Hungarian Grand Prix, 70 laps to come around the Hungaroring. And it's lights out and away we go. It's a tentative start for everyone, but Charles Leclerc, brilliant start from him. Sergio Perez all the way. Hamilton is clear. Off Lance Stroll. Then comes Sebastian Vettel, Charles Leclerc, Valtteri Bottas, and a stinker. And Max Verstappen goes around the outside, looking for third place. Hamilton leads from Stroll, and then all the Ferrari gets twitching. And for Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc too, but they avoid contact as Max Verstappen goes down the inside and into third place.
Herring Valtteri Bottas may well have jumped the start, despite not being in a particularly good position there.
Maybe he went forward, stopped, and then had to go again. We've seen that happen before, haven't we? Sebastian Vettel in Japan last year, of course. But it's Hamilton who leads here. On the inside, there's Carlos Sainz ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, and that's a battle at the moment for 8th place. Hamilton leads from Lance Stroll. Great start from Lance Stroll. Verstappen, Vettel, then comes Leclerc. Bottas. Behind Bottas is Sergio Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz, and Latifi, who started well from 14th on the grid.
Yeah, but we had Bottas move before the lights went out, but so far they're all on track. This is a nice track condition to get some heat immediately into those intermediate tyres. They do exactly what they say on the side of the tin. They are between the full wet and the slick tyre, of course, and they won't be long before they're asking for some of those slick tyres.
George Russell has dropped back places. He's down in 16th at the moment. His teammate Nicholas Latifi running in the points. And Williams in the points at the moment and 10th as we come towards the end of lap 1 and the gap out in front. Hamilton over Stroll is a massive 3.1 seconds. In just 2.7 miles, Hamilton's over 3 seconds clear. Verstappen running well in 3rd place, up from 7th on the grid. Then comes Vettel, Leclerc, Bottas. Then comes Perez and Sainz. Then comes Ricciardo, Latifi, Alex Albon behind him. And comes the Alpha Tauri of Pierre Gasly. And George Russell trying to have a look at Esteban Ocon going around turn 1. He's got the inside line. If he's got good traction, he might get past the Renault. No, he just has to slot in behind.
It's the kind of start across the way you're either going to get horrible amounts of wheel spin or just bog down and you just can't get the car away. But the Ferraris were good away from the line. Let's have a look and watch. Yeah,
He did.
he did. He stopped again. He stopped again, did Bottas. But he definitely moved before the lights. We'll see what the stewards say when they get the data. And look, both Ferraris really got away well, didn't they, in those conditions?
They certainly did. Charles Leclerc looked to have the initial better getaway. Sebastian Vettel, though, ahead of him by the time they get to turn 1. Look how twitchy and treacherous it was. And Perez got really squeezed there by Charles Leclerc.
It's a jump start, isn't it, unfortunately. But, yeah, and then Verstappen bringing it out despite new front suspension being latched on his car at the last moment. To get himself up in 3rd position for Max through the exit of turn 1. Great driving here. Very good. I tell you what, that's that oil dunk in there, I imagine, in terms of grip.
Incredible that no one actually hit each other. It really was. Verstappen is having a look now at Lance Stroll as Valtteri Bottas, I think, is coming into the pits, I'm told, as Verstappen just has a look towards turn 1. He hasn't quite got the speed advantage to get past Stroll and pitting Charles Leclerc and pitting Valtteri Bottas. Early stops then, and I would imagine onto slick tyres, soft tyres for Leclerc, medium tyres for Valtteri Bottas.
I tell you what, that'd be a handful. Some slicks right now, especially the medium ones, got to get around temperature. As Verstappen's already starting to look for a little bit of damp track to keep his intermediates cool.
And we can head to race control. Paul di Resta, good afternoon.
First time I've heard it across the Mercedes team, use stats, it will help your tyre warm up. So that's a strategic point that Mercedes got in the benefit.
Dual axis steering, they can move the steering wheel backwards and forwards to help move the front geometry around and warm the tyres up. What that means.
Sebastian Vettel being told to pit as well. We can expect him to come into the pits very soon from 4th place in this race. Closest battle on the track at the moment between Lance Stroll and Max Verstappen. The leader, by the way, is Lewis Hamilton. Stroll won't be able to see him. He's over 7 seconds clear, and we're only on lap 3. Average time loss for a pit stop about 20 seconds. But coming in and changing your tyres, getting back out again, if there's a safety car, you can halve that deficit, which is why you see so many jumping in during the safety car period. Stroll pits, releases Max Verstappen, still on the intermediate tyres. Lance Stroll pits, and into the pit lane comes Lewis Hamilton, the race leader.
So, Verstappen leads them. Verstappen leads the race. Ted.
So Lewis Hamilton actually built a nice gap to get comfortably out without having to do anything special in the pits. It was a steady stop. Sebastian Vettel also pitting, and just saying he's going to be delayed by the Red Bull. He is. Oh, it's an awful stop for Sebastian Vettel. What is going on? He can't find a gap in the traffic. He's lost so much time. The Red Bull also gets away, but such a busy pit lane as everyone decides this is the lap to go to slicks.
He's lost about 7 seconds, Sebastian Vettel. Sat stationary while the 3 cars came past him.
Yeah, it's such a narrow pit lane as well. It's a tricky one, and they don't want to bring both cars in at the same time. So some steady old pit stops going on at the moment as the drivers now go up, and every corner, every lap will be an adventure.
And we've got a yellow flag in sector 1. I wonder if someone has run wide on the slick tyres as we see Lance Stroll with Charles Leclerc now right behind him. The stewards are officially looking at Kimi Räikkönen for being out of position at the start of this race. He was last on the grid. How can he be out of position?
He's on the wrong side. Maybe like Giancarlo Fisichella did in Malaysia. Well, we'll see that pit stop now. But Verstappen's up there doing personal best sectors. Is it fast enough while the others get up to speed on their slick? They could have let go there. Why didn't they let him go in that moment?
They didn't. And he stays stationary.
They're too cautious. Ferrari too cautious there.
Right, Paul di Resta, Sky Race Control. Max Verstappen pitting.
Yeah, he is pitting, but he was saying they're going to get caught up in traffic, so let me go another lap and try and jump them. I think it was maybe a wise decision, to be fair.
And not very easy and not very wise. Nicholas Latifi spinning, and he's got a puncture as well. Great stop. 2.5 seconds for Max Verstappen. Lando Norris, I think, is going to come in for a pit stop as well. I see the McLaren team coming out. Lewis Hamilton down the straight he comes.
That will be easy. Verstappen easy second.
Yeah, Verstappen in second place behind him. Kevin Magnussen is currently running in third place. He's on the track, and Magnussen on the what tyres is he on? Verstappen in second place behind him. Kevin Magnussen is currently running in third place on the track. Magnussen on the what tyres is he on? The medium tyres. He did make a stop to switch to slicks. On the medium tyres, he did make a stop to switch to slicks.
He pitted before the start, didn't he? Yeah. Passes in the pit. So he went from
Nicholas Latifi, not only is running last and a lap down, but he was released unsafely, and he has got a 5-second time penalty to add to his woes as well. Still no news from the stewards about that jump start of Valtteri Bottas.
Maybe they're satisfied that he was stationary when the lights went out, but let's see, they've got time. Not looking for a penalty for Valtteri at all, but I think there is no doubt that he went before the lights went out.
But I suppose it's when we moved out of his grid spot there. If he was parked just a bit behind the line, he moved, stopped, and didn't get out of his...
Yeah, he certainly started the race a good half metre ahead of where he should have done, to a metre.
Kevin, you're doing perfect. We just need the best total race time we can. Our race will come after the pit stop, so just do the best laps you can.
And maybe don't get in Lance Stroll's way too much, because you're not necessarily racing against the racing points in terms of where you're expected to be in the checkered flag. That might be the key behind that message. Let's head to 10.
Excuse me, are we talking about the same Kevin Magnussen? I'm not telling that to.
I'm not saying that Gary Gannon's message is going to be... I'm not saying he's going to take any notice of it.
No way is he going to take notice of it, Rodney.
Which is why I'm not racing.
He is absolutely not taking notice of it. Having said that, Lance Stroll isn't exactly pressuring Kevin Magnussen from behind to the extent that Bottas was pressuring the Ferrari, and Magnussen holding it very nicely with the racing point behind him. I did watch Bottas move forward, guys. He did suddenly move before the lights, then he stopped, then the lights went out, and then he moved again. He was all very hesitant. He's clearly lost it. It's 2 seconds step.
So Valtteri really 12 minutes away from the use time.
Well, that's precise.
Bottas is making a progression. Yeah, a move and done and gone. He is up in the 5th place now.
Yeah, and I think Lance Stroll will become somewhat more urgent now when he knows he's got Valtteri Bottas hunting him down. We saw a Ferrari, didn't we? We saw a Ferrari with Vettel on the outside of turn 12 running off the track. So Vettel now down in 9th place. There we go, what happened?
And Alex Albon slipping past Sebastian Vettel, as you can see, Vettel down into 9th place. We're on board with the Red Bull, watching that lock up right now. Alex Albon will be very grateful for that, so thank you very much indeed. I'm sure grateful like whatever it is. And up in 8th place. Paul di Resta at Sky Race Control, monitoring the team radios for us this afternoon. You just picked up an absolute rocket with Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, he pushed after the race, but you said he was out already. So they took it, down to fix the suspension on the grid.
Yes, the car that's chasing you, Lewis, is the one you thought was out of the race. I love it.
It's certainly a two-horse race up front, isn't it? Looking at the pace they're doing. 21.8 for Hamilton, 22.1 for Verstappen, 22s and 23s for most of them behind, except the other Mercedes-Benz.
Kevin Magnussen's doing a super job here. And Lance Stroll, after running very close to the Haas for the last few laps, I wonder if he's had to drop back a little bit. But Valtteri Bottas coming at it next, because cooling is an issue here. And even in these cooler conditions than normal, that car will be overheating a bit.
Albon.
Lewis will see some rain on the radar about 12 minutes away. It will only be light.
Albon is much quicker than Leclerc at the moment. He's not had too many presents recently. Alex Albon and one Ferrari falling off the road and getting out of his way was helpful. Let's see what he can do with the second one.
Well, the big news is that Charles Leclerc is ahead of Alex Albon on the soft compound tyre, which he says are rubbish, just causing him a few issues at the moment and giving him a lot less grip than he would have wanted. The message that was coming out before this race was that don't expect to see these soft tyres being used out of choice too much. It's a medium compound, a hard compound, which might be the quickest way to get through the race, but that's in the dry, and that's without any rain coming down and the use of the intermediates or the wets, of course.
And it looks like Leclerc could be backing into, with those tyres on, into Vettel as well, in the not too distant future if Seb keeps it on the black bits on the road. So it'll be interesting what Ferrari can do about that. Meanwhile, Albon is going to need something a little bit inventive, I think, to get past the Ferrari.
Yeah, he's needs about 2 seconds of that quicker they say, in terms of pace differential to make an overtake here. Leclerc really twitchy as he gets on the power, and one a bit too far behind. Is he going to have a go into turn 2? Not on this occasion.
Now, Alex a little bit trigger happy on the throttle there on the exit of 1, and it gave the Ferrari a second chance.
I mean, if you're Leclerc, you'll be screaming, come on, let me get in, let me get rid of these soft tyres, it's not working. But if you've looked at the radar and said, look, the rain's coming in 10 minutes, the last thing you want to do is add an extra pit stop.
Yeah, or have to stop yet again, even if it stays dry. So Leclerc's going to have to carry these tyres for a while. And Albon looked much better on the brakes down into turn 1. If he can just keep in touch through 8, 9, 10, 11 here, and then down the hill into 12. Where is he? There he is. Yeah, he's got to stay in touch. And then I think he's got a chance with DRS down the pit straight. He's much better on the brakes. He needs to be a little bit closer than this.
So it's a Red Bull in between 2 Ferraris. Doesn't often end well for any of the drivers involved. Remember Singapore in 2017 at the start, of course. But this time around, Alex Albon will have DRS. Sebastian Vettel might have a bit of DRS as well behind him. And he's got the advantage of a bit more grip as well, as down the main straight he goes, accelerating towards 200 miles an hour. And is he going to be close enough to have a lunge down the inside? He is, but Leclerc manages to cut it off. He leaves enough space for Albon there, but he just made the young driver think twice about trying to get past. Is he going to have a dive down the inside of turn 2? No, he's not, because that's not the best line, because that's the wettest part of the track through there. And he's got another lap of pain stuck behind the rear wing of the Ferrari.
Yeah, as Vettel then joins the party as well. You're right, I don't think he'll have too much chance unless Leclerc makes a mistake, possibly on the brakes down into 12. That would be bold, so he's just got to somehow stay a little closer through the last corner. Easy to say, difficult to do when you're in the turbulent near the car in front.
You know, I said I thought Lance Stroll was just dropping back a bit to cool his car. Well, he's decided that he needs to get past Kevin Magnussen, and he's moved now to within the DRS. What magic 1 second the Haas in front of him. If you're within a second, you get that DRS, the gap opening in your rear wing. It gives you about a 15 kilometers an hour pace advantage down the main straight at this particular circuit, highest downforce circuit of the season, because we're not racing in Monaco in 2020. Alex Albon could see that graphic. He'd know just how close Sebastian Vettel is. He's more concentrated, I think, on the Ferrari ahead of him, as Lance Stroll does get Kevin Magnussen and takes 3rd place.
Yeah, and the Ferrari's really quick off the last corner. He's obviously saving his battery. This is a lunge down the outside. He's there to keep it around the outside. He'll cut back underneath. He's lost ground. Now he's got Vettel on his tail with DRS as well.
And Sebastian Vettel thinks, which way can I go? And Alex Albon makes it very tricky for him. He couldn't go left, he couldn't go right. So he planted that Red Bull, did Alex Albon, right in the middle of the track. We're on lap 16. Max Verstappen has 11 seconds to make up on the race leader, who is Lewis Hamilton. And into the pits comes Pierre Gasly. Ted, what can you smell?
I can smell burning oil and horrible melting bits of plastic and rubber, and you can smell that thick, acrid smoke. There's clearly a fire at the back of his Honda engine, and the weekend from absolute hell goes even worse if that's possible for Pierre Gasly. He's already got through an engine and a turbo and an MGUH, and now ends in retirement. First retirement of the race. Bad, terrible luck for Pierre Gasly.
Perez is now joining this little party we've got going on. Actually, you can add Ricardo, Sainz and Kvyat, I think, to that as well.
Absolutely. This is how Stroll got past Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen, who completed 6 laps of the podium position in the entire history of Haas before today, and have been doing a sterling job as Valtteri Bottas moves past Kevin Magnussen now and up into 4th place. I have to say that the 2 Hasses here, their job is being rather helped by this battle that's going on between Leclerc and Albon, and also Sebastian Vettel, and now Sergio Perez behind me. Is this battle, while they're concentrating on this, they're not closing up on the Haas cars in front. It's a question that has been asked once or twice before, Martin, by every driver.
Yeah. Leclerc, they're 2 metres wide, these cars. I think the Ferrari is about 3 metres wider than this. He's putting it very nicely. He's not being rude or overly aggressive. He's just parking his car very nicely. He's coming off the final turn well, presumably saving his battery power up a bit. launching out of the last corner and then parking in the middle of the track when he gets there. All fair enough.
Valtteri Bottas is absolutely flying. Now he's moved up into 4th place and ahead of Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll, the next man on the track that he's going to chase after. He's getting some overtaking done today. Alex Albon frustrated behind the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc doing a sterling job on these tyres, I must admit.
He is. He's a bit of a traffic jam at the moment, but Albon taking a tighter line, trying to get out of the slipstream of the Ferrari ahead of him. Is he just that little bit closer? Can he take a lunge up the inside? Yes, he can.
He is closer. He is going for the lunge. Leclerc knows he's coming. Leclerc gives him the space to move round because he knew he couldn't fight that without potential damage as well. And now Sebastian Vettel wants to go around the outside, and Charles Leclerc blocks off his teammate. He's not losing 2 places.
Yeah, Ferrari should be on the blower now, telling him to let Vettel through. Leclerc's on the wrong tyres. I doubt it was his call, but Albon can get away now, and because he had quite the pack coming up behind him. See what he can do with that, as Bottas is homing in on Stroll as well for 3rd place.
And this was the move Alex Albon put in on Charles Leclerc. Leclerc knew he wasn't going to fight that without any potential risk of damage, and he's had accidents at turn 1 before him. I think he tangled with the Force Indians, didn't he?
Yeah, quite passive there from Charles. I think he knew that was a done deal.
But now, Cam Ferrari swap their drivers around, and have the drivers accepted it might be the right thing to do. Alex Albon is heading off into the distance, and Sebastian Vettel would like to be chasing after him. There is Hamilton, meanwhile, 11.5 seconds clear out in front, 16 seconds back to Lance Stroll, who's got Valtteri Bottas gaining on him. Kevin Magnussen, a solid 5th place at the moment for Haas, as Leclerc now has Sebastian Vettel right on his tail.
Yeah, they've got to let him through. And this is the problem you have when effectively you fired your driver before the season. You've got to give preference to the one who's staying, and he's not letting him through. You've got, in the end, you can't give team orders against the guy you're keeping, but Vettel's got a good run off the corner and DRS.
And should go around the outside at turn 2, and does go around the outside at turn 2. They had to, if they're going to choreograph it, they've got to get it right, Martin, because Perez is lying in wait to take advantage there. If down to the main straight, Leclerc just backs off a bit too much.
Yeah.
That might have been the best place to do it, to be fair to Ferrari.
Could be.
Either way, Leclerc's kept ahead of Perez, and there'll be no team orders there, of course. As we watch pitwall and leaden skies overhead. And the rain is being blown in, but when will we get it, and how intense will it be?
Somebody's had a little adventure over the gravel there in turns 6 and 7.
So the big gainers so far, Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean, up 11 and 12 places respectively. Alex Albon's moved up 6 places from his grid spot at the start.
Are we sure the rain is coming? If not, I want to beat.
Copy, understood.
He wants off of those tyres. Kimi Räikkönen, who 3 times in the past here has gone into the points. Is ahead of Ricciardo, ahead of the man who's going to be his teammate next year, Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, Leclerc really is the cork in the bottle, isn't he? I think he'll be asking for his money back on this set of tyres. He's not at all happy, and that hasn't worked out. Others have still gone out on softs, mind you.
Giovinazzi
at the back, still trying that.
I'm losing so much. My front left is dead. I think we should stop.
Copy, understood.
They'll try and find a gap to feed him into. So let's head to the grandstand. Ted Kravitz, can you see a Ferrari crew about to run out?
Oh yes, they're already out in the pits, and everybody who put the red soft tyres on. We have Kvyat, we've got George Russell have now come in and taken them off and putting the hard tyre on to hopefully go to the end of the race. It looks like, according to the radar, guys, the water, the shower is going to pass to the south of the circuit. Not by much, but it looks like it's going to miss the circuit at the moment. That's the hard tie going on Leclerc. Just quick on Lando Norris, if you're wondering why he's so far down the order, it's because he got caught up in traffic around his pit stop. McLaren had to hold him in his pit box and he lost position, got fed back into traffic as well, so he's trying to make his way back up. And Sainz is just part of that train, isn't he? Led by the Ferraris, that's where Sainz is.
A guy called Hamilton out front, apparently.
We haven't seen much of him, to be honest. And I wasn't too worried about Lando Norris. I'm fully expecting him to gain at least 10 places on the last 2 laps, such as his exploits in 2020. Well, it's a tall order group to get into the points today, but you never know.
Yeah, it's not been kind, has it, the early phases?
Here he is, what do you see the Martin? That man Hamilton.
Turn 4, followed by 5, you won't be surprised to hear.
6 next?
It is. Oh yeah, look at that. It just follows the arc of the steering wheel, no oversteer. Got a 12.3 second lead. Now pacing it a little bit, rain coming up. Lewis is more than experienced enough to know it's far from done. You've got to keep an accurate line there. Still some damp patches here and there. We have heard on the radio some drivers being told to find a bit of damp track and cool their slick tyres, actually, to get them to run a little bit longer in case it, 12 minutes they said. Must be what, 4 or 5 minutes to go now.
It's about now, if the showers are going to hit, but as Ted said, it might just pass to the south of the circuit, which is why I think Ferrari was so desperate for Charles Leclerc to stay out there that much longer.
All light rain is better than 10 minutes.
Yeah, there's another 10 minutes to go here of light rain, which shouldn't need intermediate tyres fitting. But when he first started saying these tyres are rubbish, I want red, they didn't quite know how heavy the rain was going to be and at what stage it was going to fall. So you don't want to put an extra 20 seconds onto your race time if you can help it. And Leclerc pits eventually down now in 15th place, but he could go to the end of the race on those hard tyres.
And Lewis Hamilton up front has got the comfort of more than enough time to Lance Stroll to make a pit stop, still come out in a clear second place. And does it. He's got over half a pit stop in hand on Max Verstappen behind him. So,
menu IC position 9. IC position 9.
What number is that, man?
Menu IC position 9. But you'd have to get that because that's probably a sub-menu on there as well. And I wonder if that's something to do with the engine.
Yeah, we don't normally hear Steve Lewis when he's out cruising out front.
Yeah, internal combustion for IC on that one. He did think at the start that the engine was feeling like it was going to stall on him a little bit. He's not been overly happy with the way that engine has been performing for him, but to be honest, in the lap times, it's doing all right, thank you very much. 12 seconds at the lead for Lewis Hamilton at the moment, who is used to leading, of course, around the Hungaroring. 411 laps he's led here before this race. And on course at the moment for what would be an 8th win at this track. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez has been released from behind Charles Leclerc. He's starting to motor on up the road a little. And behind them, Daniel Ricciardo and Carlos Sainz.
At the moment, it seems the stewards were entirely satisfied that Valtteri Bottas was stationary when the lights went out and still within his zone, his start zone.
Feels like a lot of wear on that front.
I think something.
And I'm told that there is a little bit of rain coming to turn 5 and 6. Not much, but the hairpin and the chicane is where it might just get the rain. But I know we love the sunshine when we come to Hungary, Martin Brundle. It's a beautiful place to be at this time of the year, but this track with a little bit of rain around it is absolutely superb.
It is. It's a pretty treacherous place to drive an F1 car around, but yeah, another sprinkle of rain would add some fun, wouldn't it?
So been quite kind to British drivers when we have had wet weather races here at the Hungaroring. 2006 and 2011, both won by Jenson Button and Daniel Ricciardo winning in 2014 when the track was drying towards the end. Valtteri Bottas gaining, as you can see, on Lance Stroll and taking a 2 or 3 tenths a lap out of the racing points in front of him. Ted, that's up to you.
Just a couple of things on Red Bull. First of all, Max Verstappen reporting pretty much the same as Lewis Hamilton. His front tyres are starting to drain up. That's been noted by his engineer. Alex Albon is slowly making progress on Roman Grosjean.
2 seconds, Ted.
struggling a little bit with the front left.
Yep, that's common to everybody. Albon making progress on Romain Grosjean in front of him, but has had the luxury, don't they, of deploying Grosjean as some sort of blocking tactic for the Red Bull to give Kevin Magnussen a bit of a better chance. But Magnussen holding his own brilliantly in fifth at the moment. But I should add also, we should do a shout out properly to the genius of Hannah Schmitz, the Red Bull strategist, for putting Max Verstappen in that lovely bit of clean track in P2 behind Lewis Hamilton in the first place. It was beautifully judged, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautifully judged.
No, very good point indeed, Ted. Hannah Schmitz, whose strategy calls have given Max Verstappen plenty to smile about in Formula One, and of course we saw her on the podium in Brazil after that brilliant victory there last season. Meanwhile, what are the strategists making in this particular fight? Stroll against Bottas. And we're thinking, whatever's going on, boys, you're going to have to stay out there for a little bit longer, because if the rain is coming in, well, we'll make a pit stop choice right there and then. The medium tyre should do about 40 laps in this race. The hard tyre is being used about 55 laps. Danny Kvyat has gone on to the hard compound tyre, currently running in 16th place. And one of a few that have been lapped, including Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc, who've both been lapped very recently indeed by the race leader Lewis Hamilton. Esteban Ocon is next on the road to get the blue flag treatment. At this pace, probably lap 26, Martin, Hamilton could lap everyone right up to probably and including Magnussen and Grosjean.
Yeah, this rain seems to be sort of holding off, doesn't it? And if you look at the sky, it's not quite as heavy as it was. So Leclerc's pit stop's put him back down in 15th place. I mean, he's got a very good turn of speed. In fact, he's quicker than Hamilton up front. He's got lots of cars to clear now.
Well, he's got Lando Norris right ahead of him at the moment. He's looking for a move down the main straight on Lando Norris. Whilst we watch Valtteri Bottas and Lance Stroll, it's the battle for the final podium place at the moment. Bottas, who started this race 6 points clear of Lewis Hamilton, desperate to get back into the top three. I assume that is with tyre wear as well. Raining, cold raining on the left front of the tyre, where the surface gets rippled and marbled and looks like the inside of a ball of mozzarella cheese and just doesn't give you the grip that you want.
They don't have to use both types of slick tyre now, or two types I should say, because they've been out on wet tyres. But if you're going to one stop from here, it's quite a long way to go. Yeah. So that's why they're trying to hang it out, stretch this stint, get, if it is going to rain, not to make an unnecessary pit stop.
But you don't want to pit for medium tyres at the moment, because you've got what, 43 laps to go in this race, and right at the end we saw this in the F2 races here this weekend, the support races. If your tyres start to go, they start to go very quickly, and you can either look a hero or a zero in a matter of laps. Lando Norris is going to have to keep Charles Leclerc at bay here.
Yeah, Leclerc's going to have a lot more grip, but his hard compound tyres seem to be working pretty well.
into 7th place. For Alex Albon, it's a gain of 6 places on his grid spot. It's been a feature of Alex Albon in his time in F1 that he does come through to a decent pointed finish if he's starting outside the top 10, but Red Bull want a bit more than that, I'm sure. There's Lando Norris keeping ahead of Charles Leclerc, really fighting it out through turns 1, 2 and 3. Is Leclerc close enough to have a go through turn 4? No, he's way too far back. You've got to be brave if you think you can make a move happen at turn 4. Flat out corner for the brave anyway.
It's not a great message to receive that. It's going to rain, but only 4 or 5 minutes. Sounds like you might be splashing around a bit on some slicks if it's only light rain. Because it would be, if it's that short and we'll see how heavy the rain is, you'd really want to try and survive that.
If you can. Unless the rain is just too heavy, and it's not going to take much to make this track hugely damp again, is it?
I mean, they've still got half tanks of fuel, over half tanks of fuel, but we're lapping in the 21s. Remember, that's in the front. At the front, remember, pole was in the 1 minute 13s.
Albon ahead now of Romain Grosjean. Will set up Kevin Magnussen. Grosjean has provided that lovely little buffer, hasn't he, for his teammate here this afternoon. We're on board with Sebastian Vettel at the moment. Kevin Magnussen's another 8 seconds further up the road from this particular battle. Grosjean has done a solid job keeping others at play.
Yeah, it's such a shame they couldn't get Vettel out into that queue better than they did.
Well, and this is how Alex Albon managed to get past Romain Grosjean. In turn 1, Grosjean thought about defending it, and they did go wheel to front wing end plate there. That just shows you the mentality, different mentalities of drivers. Leclerc knew that Bottas was going to get past him, left him the space to do it. Grosjean would have known Alex Albon's coming through, but still fought it right to the end.
Yeah, it was quite risky there from Mr. Ferrari pit. It's quite risky from Alex, but you know, he's making these moves stick. He's been so unlucky in previous races, and I'm impressed he's still got the confidence to be having some lunges after it's gone so wrong for him.
Said he wouldn't change his approach. Down to you, Ted.
Yeah, it's red flag for Sebastian Vettel into the pits because he was losing too much time in that train of cars behind Romain Grosjean and Alex Albon. So Seb's decided to go to the hard tyre, try to get to the end of the race. Seemingly doesn't want to wait for the rain, Sebastian, as everybody else seems to be doing. But yeah, rejoins just outside the top 10. Quick line on Kimi Raikkonen, holding his own brilliantly. We haven't heard anything about him lining up in the wrong spot for the grid, the back of the grid, have we yet?
Yeah, we did. He's got a penalty, a 5-second penalty for it.
Okay, right. Well, then Esteban Ocon then maybe knows that, but still on pace. Ocon can't get anywhere near and past the Alfa Romeo.
And Sebastian Vettel comes out a lap down. Has been now lapped by the race leader, and I know that the Ferraris, the 2 Ferraris, have stopped an extra time and have lost the time that goes with that, but they've both been lapped by Lewis Hamilton, who is now 15 seconds clear in this race and heading to the top of the Drivers' Championship by the checkered flag in this race.
Clockwise circuit, a lot of very long right-handers here, not least this final corner. That's why your left front hurts.
Romain Grosjean will see the Pinnock Racing points alongside him, and it might just hurt a touch that Sergio Perez has now slipped past the Haas and up into 7th place. I wonder if those drivers swapping positions. I wonder if those drivers will be swapping places at Haas for next season as well.
I'm convinced the bright car, in a subliminal way or a subconscious way, and even a conscious way, is more menacing in your mirrors.
Lando Norris has the red Scarlet car, which has been menacing enough. All in his quick mirrors at the moment. Sebastian Vettel with Charles Leclerc, I should say, nearly having to go onto the grass to try and get past him. He's on the inside. He pushes Lando Norris wide. Norris is having absolutely none of it. Sticks to his task well. And as Charles Leclerc gets out his elbows, Lando Norris says, yeah, mine are about a foot bigger. Have some back.
Yeah, it's quite a little race, isn't it, Lando? Good action, and then really, I have to say, good driving there, that they didn't end up in a pile on the outside of the track.
This was superb, Pidge. Just watch as they head round turn 2. Leclerc goes a little wide there. Lando Norris reacts to it and then comes back at him again.
Yeah, Leclerc got a bit of a swapper on and had to get out the throttle just there.
Absolutely mega. That's proper bravery as well, Martin. I know it's not the fastest corner on the calendar. You're about 85 miles an hour coming out of that, but it's still a fair enough speed, and you don't want to be making contact there. And well done to Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. Great entertainment, because it's such a short lap there. You don't have to wait too long for the entertainment to start all over again. Sebastian Vettel sets a new fastest lap of the race, and he's ahead of this battle. Currently for 13th place as Leclerc thinks starting to go around the outside on this occasion. Can I do the old switcheroo and get a better exit out of the first corner? And Norris still plants that McLaren in a very nice position. McLaren with a hard compound tyre, which is working well. Seems to have got a half car length ahead, seems to have got a full car length ahead, and has got the job done this time.
Yeah, great driving from the pair of them. And they have 8 wheels intact still. Very impressive.
It can be done.
Yeah. Ocon's pitted for Renault. Bottas now just 1.1 seconds behind Stroll. He's almost within drag reduction system range.
And this is how Charles Leclerc managed it this time around. Nice. Lando needed to concede that one, otherwise he was going to lose a bit of his front wing. There's rain there, isn't there? There's a lot of rain, but I think it has passed. Most of it seems to have passed to the right-hand side of the circuit as we were looking to pass turn 1.
Tapped on the helicam, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Not enough to bother the drivers.
This is Romain Grosjean ahead of Daniel Ricciardo in 8th place at the moment. Grosjean, who hasn't made a pit stop in the race as yet. Ricciardo slips by on the inside, and the two Haas is starting to fall back just a little bit now, and he gets a round of applause for his troubles. There's Daniel Ricciardo from his teammates down at Renault.
You can see the vortices kind of just boiling off the edges of the rear wings, and we've got a 77% humidity here.
Valtteri Bottas coming into the pits first, even though he wasn't the lead Mercedes. They decided that he could do with getting out of the dirty air being caused by Lance Stroll's Racing Point, and being put into a nice clean gap behind Antonio Giovinazzi. And so 2.4 seconds stationary pit stop. Bottas is back out into the race again.
So it seems that the teams are beginning to think the rain will pass by now. And Bottas then trying to undercut Stroll. Racing Point will have to react on this lap. I would imagine it's too late anyway, because Bottas is out in some lovely clear air.
Red Bull are telling Max Verstappen on the radio that the threat of rain has gone, and Lewis Hamilton has pretty much gone a long way clear of the field. 18.2 seconds, 19 seconds now. The lead for Hamilton, whose front right tyre seems to be coping okay at the moment, and he's losing performance everywhere else. Verstappen, meanwhile, you can see why he's been complaining about his tyres so much, and into the red zone. 10% performance left on his front left and his rear left as well. Hamilton, who won the last 2 Hungarian Grand Prix by 17 seconds, at half race distance, is 19 seconds clear of the field. It's a Stroll pick. Rain. I wonder to what intensity does Stroll pit? No, Lance Stroll does not, but he carries on past it.
They're concerned there may be some rain still, and they don't want to waste a pit stop. Interesting. And we saw Racing Point gamble beautifully, didn't we, in qualifying?
Just got frustrated there, wasn't it?
Yeah. As he hauls past another car, one-handed.
It was Romain
steering wheel.
Yeah, it was Romain Grosjean that he passed. Romain Grosjean that Carlos Sainz was sizing up as well. And there you see the McLaren moving past and up into 9th place as Alex Albon now pits. Good change of tyres, hard compound tyres to go towards the end of the race. Red Bull definitely think that there's no rain coming for the rest of this race, otherwise they might have asked him to stay out for a few more laps as well. Comes out into the race as Alex Albon ahead of Charles Leclerc, behind Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, if it doesn't, Stroll pitting this lap, then he's going to be undercut without doubt by Valtteri Bottas, and we'll move back to 4th place.
Well, while we watch Charles Leclerc, Lance Stroll is just coming into the pits. Should just be coming into the pits about now. Just looking at our driver tracker, he has just come into the pits about now, whilst Valtteri Bottas is making his way around the penultimate corner and getting to the final corner. This should be an easy undercut, really, for Valtteri Bottas and for Mercedes, despite the good work by the Racing Point crew. 3.1 seconds, away goes Lance Stroll, but as he comes out, you'll see that Valtteri Bottas has passed him, and Bottas back up into the podium places. He started on the front row, he's now running third, and he can chase after Max Verstappen. Right, head to you.
Kevin Magnussen comes in from P5 to make his what he hopes will be his final stop. But it is sort of misty rain that's 2 seconds, Ted.
Okay, conditions-wise, we're expecting it to rain as it is for the next 5 minutes and then clear to the end of the race.
That's not enough rain, I would suggest, for wet tyres. If you open your commentary box window properly and look yonder to the water park.
He's pitting Max Verstappen. I can't quite see the water park. For Valtteri Bottas. Talking of Red Bull, there's Alex Albon getting past Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen has done a stellar job in this race, he really has. Let's see if the Haas team can't hold on here for what will be a famous points finish for them, I think.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see Haas and Alfa Romeo coming back into the rung a bit, wouldn't it? They've really struggled, I think, with everybody with the Ferrari power units gone backwards a bit this year.
62 points Lewis Hamilton would have at the end of this race. He hasn't got the point for the fastest lap at the moment. That goes to his teammate Valtteri Bottas, if he can hang on to it. And here's Sergio Perez, who said he was feeling dizzy during qualifying yesterday. Maybe it's because he's had so much racing over relatively short tracks over the last 3 weeks, but he's feeling a lot better now. And Perez trying to salvage a decent finish from this race after the disappointment at the start, where he's tumbling backwards in the tricky conditions, so we're starting on the intermediate tyres. Up ahead of Perez, Kevin Magnussen, the race. Oh, look how twitchy Magnussen is there, trying to get out of that final corner. See the rain on the camera lens. McLaren say that's class 2. It's just a few little spits and spots as Magnussen closes the door on Sergio Perez. Has to stay the Racing Points down in 10th place for the time being.
Bottas is flying. Is Verstappen's heart going to be broken again? Just like last weekend, drove brilliantly, was splitting the Mercedes, looked like he got it covered, and then somehow they outpowered him, and Bottas is catching him at a vast rate of knots.
Or as it was last year when Lewis Hamilton did exactly the same thing and took away the victory that Max Verstappen was hoping for, to hang out on his tyres at the end of the race whilst Mercedes pitted and went all-out charge.
What's that song? Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz?
Is that what Max Verstappen might be singing?
It could be. Yeah, they always had make on the end of it, mind you.
He will that. He will that, but Valtteri Bottas only 5.5 seconds back now. Verstappen, some 19 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. He's lapped everyone up to Danny Kvyat in 12th place. Kvyat still on those hard tyres, and he was switched to quite early on in this race. So down the main straight we go once again. Haas ahead of Racing Point. Racing Point with DRS closing. Perez wanted to go around the inside before. Now he's going to make his way around the outside this time. Magnussen's got him covered. But can Perez now switch to the outside at turn 2 and get the job done? Yes, he can. Perez up into 9th place.
I'm beginning to think that Merc engine actually turns the Earth in the opposite direction, as well as the car going forward. I mean, the speed he carried down the pit straight there.
Well, Lance Stroll had the fastest car in the speed trap during the qualifying session yesterday in the other Racing Points. It certainly seems to be the class engine for this year. Toto Wolff saying to yourself and Simon Lazenby before the race, Martin, that we had to work very hard last year to keep up with Ferrari, and we knew that we had a real battle on our hands and we weren't happy with what was going on at Ferrari, but the upside is they've had their knuckles wrapped and they've been told to stop doing what they were doing by the FIA. Oh, and we've ended up with a much better engine as a result.
Yeah. Bottas using his, well, he's actually lost a 10th in the first sector to Hamilton and Verstappen on this particular lap. A World Championship leader, of course, when we went into the race.
Yeah. But this isn't his best track.
Just think about managing that front left. He did add balance.
It's almost a version of Leave Me Alone, I don't know what I'm doing there. Oh, hello, Nico Rosberg. Yeah, good to see you with us this afternoon. I didn't realise he was going to be appearing on the Jumbo fan screen. But Nico Rosberg, live from a sofa somewhere near Monaco. I think that's where he is at the moment. Hamilton live in a cockpit at Hungaroring, 19.3 seconds clear. Max Verstappen, Valtteri Bottas. He's only about one podium with this track in 7 attempts before. That was a 3rd place, currently in 3rd place and taking another second out of Max Verstappen on the last lap. Lance Stroll is another 15 seconds further back in the lead Racing Point, so we can head to 10th.
And then 5th is Danny Rick, and Danny Rick driving these tyres like he has to pay for them himself, and absolutely staying out and treating. He's in a lovely, just past me in the grandstand. He's in a lovely bit of air. He's got nobody in front of him. Carlos Sainz is quite a long way behind him, as is the. In fact, Sainz is pitted. So Ricciardo really by himself. Sainz in front of me, car 55 stops at McLaren. Let's see what tyres he puts on. Tries to go to the end on the hard tyres, I would expect. Yes, they are. Now that the threat of rain has passed, and that rain cloud, I believe, is now dousing downtown Budapest. But Daniel Ricciardo wants to stay out as long as he can, properly, and see what opportunities open up for him. And it's him, now Sainz is pitted, it's him really that's the outlier, who's still out there without a pit stop, whereas everyone around him has.
Yeah. Lapping a couple of tenths off the pace of Lance Stroll at the moment. What would be a concern, I would assume, to Renault is the fact that Sebastian Vettel, his former teammate, is about 6 or 7 tenths a lap quicker.
Bottas on the yellow mark medium tyres, of course, still coming. Max Verstappen does have the fastest lap of the race so far. Will get the extra championship point. That looks like it's going to be pretty crucial in his fight with Hamilton at the moment.
Well, he took the only race of the season just as he did last year, and then saw Lewis Hamilton win the 2nd race of the season, just like he did last year. And Valtteri Bottas, the new 3.0 Valtteri Bottas, would have been hoping for a similar result akin to China last year, where of course he beat Lewis Hamilton there on the Mercedes 1-2. So, yeah, I'll get that right next time. He finished 2nd, didn't he, Bottas last year in China? Hamilton took the win. That's what he wants to avoid.
Richard, to expect possible rain 9 laps.
Just teasing us out, mate.
Oh dear. That is Nicholas Latifi, George Russell's teammate, who had a puncture after an unsafe release and was spun around at turn 1 and has gone to the runoff area at turn 5. I assume he might have had a spin there as well. I don't know if there's any damage to the car.
Yeah,
it's moving out of the way, isn't it?
If Bottas were able to get up to 2nd place and does get fastest lap, that would put them on equal points, wouldn't it? Heading towards Silverstone.
Yeah,
that's a 6 behind. If Hamilton wins, that's a 7 advantage, -1 for fastest lap, but neither is he 2nd, nor has he got fastest lap guaranteed.
That was the spin for Latifi.
Yeah, that's true. is turned in, looks like quite late into the corner. And Bakara said, I can't do that. Ted.
Possible trouble for Red Bull. They've been called to the stewards after the race for allegedly drying the grid box of Alexander Albon's car in front of his starting position, which is against Article 22.3 of the sporting regulations.
Yeah, you can't dry the track to give your man a better grip start.
Whether it was through, I mean, I didn't notice it. My attention was all on the other Red Bull as they tried to do an hour's job in 12 minutes.
I tell you what, it was picked up by the cameras right at the start. I didn't realise that was Alex Albon's grid spot. We were busy talking at the time.
Are they doing it with leaf blowers or what?
Well, there was definitely a patch of dry tarmac. I didn't detect at the time whether it was Alex Albon or Max Verstappen's car, to be honest, and there was that much work going on around Verstappen's car. They probably dried it with the soles of their trainers, the crew.
Two guys going well. Ricciardo in fifth, Vettel in sixth. Ricciardo's going to be mighty if it doesn't rain. He gets, well, it might be mighty if it does rain, but when he gets a fresh set of slick tyres towards the end of the Grand Prix, and Seth Vettel making his way back quite nicely in the 1 minute 20s, as is Albon, 3.5 seconds behind him.
Yeah, that would be, if they get caught doing that, Red Bull, that's a very silly thing to have done, isn't it? Because
you're not allowed to alter the grip unless you spin your wheels coming out of your pit box and you are returning to the racetrack. Then you can add a bit of grip to your pit box. You cannot mess around with the track, otherwise everybody would be.
Daniel Ricciardo pits his medium tyres that will go on towards the end of the race. Vettel and Albon and Perez all go past. Magnussen should go past as well. Possibly Lewis Hamilton, the Mercedes, leading this race, and does go past, as does Charles Leclerc. So he's been lapped, Daniel Ricciardo, while he does that pit stop, and he is now down into 9th place, but very handily placed, with some nice fresh tyres for 25 more laps of this race.
I think Ricciardo's immediately back in front of Leclerc again, which is rather important.
Absolutely.
For his race.
Nicholas Latifi gets lapped by Valtteri Bottas, who is catching Max Verstappen, to the extent now that gap that was 5.5 seconds is down to about 1.4 seconds. And very soon we'll start to get the advantage of DRS, and maybe in about 3 laps' time we'll see Valtteri Bottas with a potential chance of an overtake here. He needs this second place. He's not going to win a race. He needs to keep tabs on Lewis Hamilton and keep the pressure on his teammates. Although, as Bono, the race engineer for Hamilton, said last week, got your mojo back, Lewis, and it certainly has seemed that way here at the Hungaroring this weekend. 20 seconds clear, the race leader so far. Around the final corner comes then Daniel Ricciardo, Charles Leclerc behind him, the 1.5 second gap. Just ahead, Kevin Magnussen, who not long since Kevin Magnussen pitted as well. That could be quite a tasty duel.
Yeah, Leclerc was in on lap 20, of course, for his tyres.
When did Magnussen pit again?
Magnussen pitted, bear with me, I'll get my people, call your people. Lap 35.
Okay. So still a fair amount of life in those medium tyres. Bottas was closing, and he'll get DRS soon. I think by the time we get to the next DRS zone, he will have just that. Aggressive from Valtteri Bottas being. How aggressive does he need to be in a car, Martin, that does... It just seems so much faster than anything else on the racetrack.
Well, Max won't make it easy, but if he gets into DRS in the slipstream of the Red Bull down the pit straight, I suspect it'll be relatively easy. He then knows Max will lunge him from whichever side he's not, and try and come back at it as he did last weekend in Austria, just for his own amusement, really.
Yeah, understood that. We're trying.
Carrying, what was he saying there? Carrying an issue, obviously, of some sort.
Alex Albon earlier was saying he needs more power. Maybe that's the case for Max Verstappen as well. I think he's after more tools, more weapons at his disposal. Lando Norris, as you saw, making one.
What's going on?
They need to.
For sure.
Worried from that thing, that in Stewart's investigation for Albon. I think if they're treated nicely, it'll be a 10-second time penalty. But if they throw the this kind of thing tends to end in race disqualification, doesn't it? Don't you think?
Well, it's a serious thing.
It's a serious thing, and it looks like our guys in our BT boiler rooms have had a look, and it looks like they were doing it.
Well, the stewards will have access to all the footage as well. Yeah, little puff of smoke as Romain Grosjean locks up. Lando Norris is now going to use his DRS to try and get past the Haas. Does so. Lando Norris up into 14th place. You can see just a few moments ago how much time is lost when you get lapped in modern day Formula 1. You have to move aside, you get on the marbles, your tyres cool down.
Is everything okay on the car? I don't have any more grip hand road. I have barber, but just check everything.
All looks okay. All looks okay.
Grosjean maybe experiencing something similar to that as well.
So push rod loads and everything like that are looking okay, suggesting the aero parts are all in place and the suspension's tight.
On Verstappen's Red Bull as well. What a great job they did at the start of this race to get Max Verstappen after crashing into the barriers on his lap to the grid. He crew then, as he lost his front wing, and had a real big job to do to get Max Verstappen into this race, and they did. It was absolutely superb. We're watching Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, teammates from next year, scrapping away as Sainz going to dive down the inside nose. As Valtteri Bottas hits for Mercedes, just as he's catching Max Verstappen. They obviously think that Verstappen is going to have to pit again, so let's get Bottas in now. We'll put the undercut on Max Verstappen. We don't need to do any overtaking on the track. There's a hard compound tyre that goes on.
Yeah, that's put Red Bull under pressure, hasn't it? What do they do about that? Bottas has got a comfortable pit stop behind him to Lance Stroll, so comes out and maintains position. And he can now have a run at the Red Bull. He'll have the pace, and if Verstappen pits, he will have undercut him as well. Quite comfortably, I imagine.
20 laps to go, Martin. There's a Mercedes chasing down about a 20-second gap to a Red Bull in front. I'm not sure what the French for déjà vu is, but we're getting in here at the Hungaroring, although not the battle for the lead this time round.
And Hamilton's got a free pit stop as well if he wanted to come in and try for that fastest lap.
which I'm sure he would. Now, Carlos Sainz would like, I'm sure, to give Charles Leclerc a little memory test of what it's like to be overtaken by the Spaniard. But there's not enough pace on the straight, even with DRS, to get close to him on this particular occasion. Still those grey skies up ahead and up above, sort of threats of rain hanging around the Hungaro ring, but we've not got any deluges so far during the course of this race.
Leclerc's tyres have been on 31 laps now. Remember, they put the socks on and he didn't like those. Pitted extremely early. The rain never turned up, and but it's left him now struggling for mechanical grip from the tyres.
He could theoretically go to the end of the race. 55 laps, say Pirelli, with these hard compound tyres. See the theory before the start of this race.
Bottas looks like he's soon going to completely move the goalpost on new fastest lap. Now that he's 5/7 his way through his fuel load, they're maxed out at 100 kilograms of fuel. And that's 105 now, isn't it? 105 they're allowed to use, and fuel is measured by weight rather than volume because it doesn't vary with temperature, so they always talk about kilograms of fuel.
Leclerc versus Sainz, part 3 as he tears off a visor strip. Carlos Sainz, a lock-up up ahead. That's going to keep him really interested now. Look how much he's gained on Charles Leclerc by just one little lock-up there from the Ferrari driver. Sadly for Carlos Sainz, not enough to try and force that papaya McLaren down the inside of the scarlet red Ferrari. Just struggling, I think, to live with Leclerc through the twisty section of this track and to get within 1 second down the straight.
Yeah, you can hear the transmission just oscillating a bit, can't you, with the movement in the sidewall of the tyres as they change gear, a little oscillation in the engine note.
That fastest lap competition that is available, I think, this afternoon to Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Now moving to the 118s at the moment. Race lap record here, by the way, 1:17.1, set by Max Verstappen last year.
So unless Max pitted now, even if he does pit now, he'll lose track position.
So target pace 85 to beat him.
And he did that on the previous lap. I wonder if Red Bull are going to try and leave Verstappen out there to try and hang on to the end of the race.
85 to beat him every lap till the end.
What's the fuel burn?
Very big order there.
Yeah, well, he's managed it on one lap, and as the fuel burns off, of course, it becomes slightly easier again. He's going for it again with a couple of purple sectors on this lap.
Yeah, and he's still got decent clear air as well through Bottas.
It must be, as Bottas has a 1:17.9, just to show how easy it is, ladies and gentlemen, to do a 1:18.5. Red Bull must be thinking, we'll have to leave Max Verstappen out here as Lance Stroll now pits, and he might just have a chance of getting out ahead of Sebastian Vettel, now currently in 5th place. So, stops on his marks, a little bit short of his mark, and heads out. Sub 3 second pit stop for the Racing Point crew. Sebastian Vettel will come over the crest. There he is. And Lance Stroll comes in and out again ahead of the Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel. So well worth making that pit stop. He doesn't lose a place on the track, and he's got a nice fresh set of boots to go towards the end of the race. Ted, to you.
Yeah, so Mercedes think that the right tyre for Bottas to go to the end on is the hard, and Red Bull made that decision 15 laps ago with Max Verstappen. Then what kind of tyre magic does Lewis Hamilton have in his car with the medium tyres, which have already done the same number of laps as Max Verstappen behind him, 16, that they think he can get to the end very safely on those tyres? I mean, I know it's got a nice buffer, 22 seconds, is it? Back to Verstappen?
Yeah, I mean,
It's a bit touch and go, isn't it? For Lewis?
At the moment, he's not going to come in and change tyres, whilst Verstappen's 22 and a bit seconds behind him. That not only is that touch and go, you risk conceding track position there. And that's maybe not what Lewis Hamilton fans would want to hear at this moment in time.
Well, I'm not surprised it doesn't feel great.
Spot on there, Ted.
If he quit it now and it was perfect, then he'd come out about a second ahead of Verstappen.
Yeah.
On much fresher tyres.
But if he didn't,
I don't think they've got much option. Surely they could have stopped him again.
he's still lapping about 0.3 of a second clear what he was. Then Max Verstappen, although on this latest lap, he has just lapped Sergio Perez, which is why he's putting a 120.3.
Time cliff.
Albon is coming at Vettel as well for good measure, having a nice little race there, Alex Albon. But yeah, Lewis has got a pit stop in hand. He has so much more pace than Max anyway, frankly. So I can't help but think Mercedes ought to be doing that quite soon. Then Lewis does a personal best first sector. Anyway, where is he? He just passed Perez.
Yeah, he lapped
That's
Perez.
probably why, isn't it?
It is. He lapped Perez on that previous lap. What was it? Alex Albon coming at Sebastian Vettel. Daniel Ricciardo is also coming at Sergio Perez and will join that strap as well soon. Paul, the rest is to you.
Hamilton's just been told to get a bit of a move on, get a little bit of comfort, and then they'll do a box and put a first set of tyres onto the end.
Yeah, they do need to do that, but I suppose Red Bull say go Lewis. No, they're not saying go Lewis. That's the jumbo from the fan screen at turn 12. But I suppose Red Bull have just made Mercedes think a little bit and are just giving Max Verstappen the best chance strategically that they can run those hard tyres to the end of this race. And Valtteri Bottas, meanwhile, another 0.8 of a second. Quicker.
It can go the pace of Leclerc. I don't think if Sainz get past Leclerc, he's fast obviously, but also new on tyres, so hopefully Leclerc can keep him behind for as long as possible, and then it's only 12 laps to go, so hopefully, but I'm not sure, but still thanks, I'm happy with any point we can get.
Yeah, how does a team principal cope with a situation like this? How are your nerves, and more importantly, how's your fingernails?
No, I'm pretty tense at the moment, but it's part of the job. But this is good tension, you know.
Yeah.
I don't mind this tension.
Good, so thanks ever so much indeed. We'll be back with you later, watching Max Verstappen on the screen.
Just lapping to Hamilton. The next man for Lewis Hamilton to lap is Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari, running P5. I mean, and we're talking about the speed of the Racing Point, which is a very good fully admitted copy of last year's Mercedes. And despite a great job by Lance Stroll, he's 72 seconds off the lead. That's the might of the Works team and the kind of relentless performance of the likes of Hamilton.
Even when you add an extra pit stop to Hamilton on that one, you're still going to be 50 seconds in the lead.
Yeah,
and Sebastian Vettel has been lapped.
That's a very significant moment.
Yeah. In the Ferrari, which was the fastest car in a straight line last year, was car that wanted to challenge Mercedes, failed in its bid to do so, and was inquired about in terms of its engine by the FIA at the end of last year. And whatever the results of that inquiry were, and we'll never know because it was kept secret, an agreement between Ferrari and the FIA, what we see on track now is a Ferrari that is an awful lot slower than it was last year in terms of horsepower and through the corners as well. They say it's a draggy car, but it's certainly losing about 50 horsepower based on last year's engine as well. Meanwhile, all the work that's gone in at Brixworth, Mercedes High Performance Power, has paid dividends to give Lewis Hamilton the power that he wants at the moment, and he ends lap 58 with a lead of about 24 seconds on his nearest rival.
Yeah, well over a pit stop. He can play it as he can rain, can snow, can do what he likes. He's got a pit stop in hand, and he'll be able to. He's often talking about, as Lewis Hamilton, I'm constantly changing my driving style to work these tyres, little things I learn about these tyres, and that answers Ted's question to the extent of how can Lewis go so far on a set, so fast on a set of tyres that others have been struggling with.
Yeah, and of course he's had the benefit of running in clean air for the race, not having to overtake.
Just get your head down, back on the pace now, Max.
Try as hard as I can.
Yeah, head of it.
Just in case they thought he'd switched off a little bit, Max Verstappen trying to remind his race engineer that he is still trying, but the gap to Valtteri Bottas is now under 10 seconds. With 11 laps to go in this race, Bottas is slowly but surely getting that gap down. Ted, to you.
I think Verstappen had a bit of traffic, which is why he dropped the time to Bottas. Bottas now 10 seconds behind. It was 9. In fact, it's sort of flicking a bit between 9 and 10 seconds Bottas to Verstappen. But yeah, you're right. I can't see any action into the Mercedes garage. I mean, I can see into it, but I can't see any action in there. But